Okay, so here's a screencast showing you guys how to do the plasmid mapping question number 5. And I'll tell you right now, this is hard. My husband struggled with it for a little while. There's nothing like this that's going to be on the test. But it's like a good kind of critical thinking problem. So we will go through it together anyway. And if I get confused at points, just bear with me. We're just going to work it out together. All right. Okay, so let me share my iPad and we will try to do this together, together, together. All right. Okay, so here's the question. And it is all showing you a determined graduate student set out to construct a restriction map for the plasmid PDA 401. So the final plasmid will be called PDA 401, and the total size is 4.0 kilobases. So in other words, 4,000 base pairs. And the restriction enzymes used were HinD3, BAMH1, EcoR1. After carrying out the digestions, the resulting DNA fragments were electrophoresed, meaning separated by size on a gel. And the sizes were determined using DNA size standards, aka DNA ladder. The data obtained in each digestion are shown below. From these data, construct a restriction map for this plasmid with these enzymes. So the way that I'm going to, hold on, my iPad, I need to turn it up so I can see a little bit better. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is do each of these alone. All right, so HinD alone, what would that look like? So we know that HinD alone is going to have 2 cuts, and that will give us a 0.18 size and a 3.82, right? We know that BAM alone is also going to have 2 cut marks, right? And those are going to give us, so these are 2 BAM sites, and it's going to give us a 1.65 piece and a 2.35 kilobase piece. And then we have ECO alone, EcoR1 alone. And that will also give us we're going to have 2 cut marks with a 1 kilobase piece and a 3 kilobase piece. All right, 3.0. So now what I'm going to do is try to look at them together. So this is going to be HinD plus BAM. All right. And what I'm going to look for are any fragments that are shared between them, right? So what I notice right away is this 1.18 is shared between those. All right. And I also notice that our BAM, this 2.35, is shared between them. So that means that both of those kind of cuts between them are conserved. So I'm going to put my HinD in HinD, and I have 0.18. We know that that's conserved. And we also know that somewhere up here, we have a 2.35 with BAM and BAM, right? So we know that this 2.35 is conserved, check. And we know this 1.18 is conserved. So then the only other 2 pieces that remain are going to be our, what is this? 1.2 kilobase piece and 0.27. We don't know, however, where those are. They could be flip-flopped. They could be swapped, right? Now we're going to do HinD plus EcoR1. Right? And we're going to look at our fragments again and look for anything that is shared between HinD and EcoR1. And again, we see this 0.18. And with EcoR1, we see the 1. So what that means is that, again, we're going to have our HinD with 0.18. And we have our EcoEco, which is 1.0. Then between them, we're going to have a 1.87 and a 0.95. But again, those could be swapped. We don't know. All right. Now let's do our final one, which is BAM plus eco. All right. So when we do our BAM plus eco, we are going to, again, look for anything shared. And let's see. So for BAM, whoops, sorry. Trying to get a difference. So BAM, I don't see anything shared there. And our eco, I see nothing shared there. So that's annoying. So let's see how we're going to do this. So the first thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and put in, let's see, BAM plus eco. I'm going to go ahead and put in my eco first, my eco alone first. All right. So I'm going to put in my eco alone, and I'm going to put my 1 and my 3. All right. Now, we know that since none of the pieces are shared between them, what that means is that BAM has got to go between that and between that. Hopefully that makes sense, right? And what you'll notice is that this one, if we cut that, we have 2 pieces that will add up to that, right? So we have 0.75 and 0.25 will add up to make that 1. And if that, for the 3, these 2 add up to make 3, right? So I'm going to put 1.6 and 1.4 that would add up to make that 3, right? So this now will be our eco, our BAM eco. All right, now our job is to figure out how we can put any of this together. All right, so on my big map here, I am going to start with our BAM eco map that we just had, just as a starting point. All right, so what we had is BAM 0.75 to eco, and we had another eco at 0.25. And then we had a BAM over here somewhere with our, 1.4 and 1.6. I think that's correct, right? And now our job is to figure out where we can put our Hindi, right? So where can we add in our 2 Hindi sites, okay? And this is where it gets a little bit tricky, all right? So what I'm going to notice here is, let me see here. So what I'm going to look for is, hold on, I need to get my calculator. Dink, dink. So I'm going to put 1.6 plus 0.75. And if I put those together, so 1.6 plus 0.75, that equals together our 2.35, right? So that's our BAM BAM. So we know that our Hindi sites are not going to be over there, but they're going to have to be on the other side. All right. So what I'm going to do is put in Hindi, breaking up this 0.4 over here. And I'm going to put 0.18 there. Right. So then I have to figure out, do some math to try to figure out now is 1.4 is going to equal 0.18 plus what, right? And if you look at that, this now can be our 0.27 and our 0.95, all right? And the beauty of plasmid mapping is that you can always go back and check all of your work, all right? And so again, I would never give you something this difficult on a test, never in a million years. So don't expect that. But I did want to walk you through kind of my logic. But I think that this is the correct map, but let's just double check. So let's just check with our Hindi and BAM. So I'm going to try to color code this for our checking. I'm going to just remove my red line. There. All right. So I'm going to do these color coded here. So for Hindi and BAM, we get a 2.35. So that would be our BAM there. BAM Hindi 0.27. our 0.1, and then this fragment here, 0.95 plus 0.25 should in fact equal our 1.2. So that all looks good. So now we will go ahead and check our Hindi eco, right? So Hindi eco, so let's check this fragment first. So it should be 1.6 plus 0.27, which will give us 1.87. We should have our 0.18 there. We should have 0.95, check, and then we have 1. So that all adds up. Oops. All right. And now we're going to do the last one and just double check that it's all good. And this is going to be our BAM eco. So BAM eco should give a 0.75 and a 0.25. And then we should get this fragment, which is 0.27 plus 0.18 plus 0.95, which is our 1.4, check. And then we have our 1.6 over here. So this is the correct map. Sorry that this was so confusing. It is very difficult. Don't feel like you have to do anything this complicated. If you're going to practice any of these, I would practice question 4, 3, whoops, 2 and 1. Those are going to be much more similar to the things that you might see on a test. All right, signing off. Toodles poodles.